Good morning. Today, through this video, I am going to discuss the topic what makes India a federal country. As we know that India attained independence in 1947 and independence was attained by India at the cost of partition of India. And in 1947, in Asia emerged two independent nations from India, namely India and Pakistan. We also know that in India, people of different ethnic identity, linguistic identity, cultural identity, traditional identity are living together. So it was a challenge before the framer of constitution how to accommodate such varied population living in our country. And due to this reason, the framer of Indian Constitution decided to adopt federal form of, of government for our country. And we feel proud that till date, this form of government is working with perfection, and we can say heading towards perfection. So let's now discuss what makes our country a federal country. To understand this, we have to discuss or we have to find out the provision of constitution which make this country a federal country. And we have already discussed the key features of federalism. And here we try to see whether the key features which make a country a federal country prevail or exist in our constitution or not. Let's start. First and most important feature is power sharing among different levels of government. And when we try to find this, we find that Indian Constitution guaranteed power sharing to union government and state government. The seventh schedule of Indian Constitution and Article 246 of our Constitution deals with threefold distribution of legislative power between central government and state government. The threefold distribution of legislative power, administrative power, and executive power between state government and central government is well defined, well explained in our constitution. And Schedule 7 contains three lists, namely union list, state list, and concurrent list. Let's discuss about union list. Union list includes those subjects which are of national importance. That means some subjects need uniform law, similar law for whole country, and all such subjects are included in union list. Second important point which we have to know about union list is that only union government enjoy exclusive right and power to frame laws on the subjects mentioned in union list. In the beginning, when we adopt and enforced our constitution, it had 97 subjects. But after amendment, at present, number of subjects is 100. After 101st amendment of the constitution. Take some example of subjects mentioned in union list: defense, railways, banking, post office, currency, foreign affairs, communications, etc. Now let us analyze what happens if currency is put under state list. It empower every state to issue currency. In that situation, India face lots of problem. At present, 28 states we are having, 8 union territories. So, in total 36 administrative unit function in our country. So, it may be possible that 36 currencies are in operation in our country, and it creates huge problem for smooth trade, for traveling from one state to another state. Now let us recall when Jolverin was finally formed in 1834 by the initiative of Prasad. One major step taken by Jolverin was this decision to reduce number of currency from 30 to 2, only 2. Another example, European Union was established with sole objective to promote trade and commerce, and all member states agreed to adopt one single currency, euro. So that this point help us to conclude that in one nation only one currency is required. That means currency is of national importance. That's why it is kept under union list. Now, second list, that is state list. It includes subjects of local or regional importance. Every province need local laws, immediate laws to maintain law and order in specific state. So, state government is given power and right to frame laws on the subjects mentioned in state list. In the beginning, when we enforce our constitution, it had 66 subjects. But at present, it had only 61 subjects. Some subjects like education, is shifted from state list to concurrent list. Now, some examples: police, agriculture, trade, irrigation, etc. are important subjects of state list. In normal circumstances, situation, state government enjoy right to frame laws on the subjects mentioned in this list. But Article 249 empowers union government to frame laws on the subjects of state list under three conditions. First, if resolution is passed by Rajya Sabha mentioning immediate need at national level to frame laws on some subjects of mentioned in state list. Second situation, in case of national emergency, Article 350, 356, state emergency, state subjects or state list can be considered by Union Parliament and Parliament pass law if required, needed. And third situation, when a state or more than one state together pleaded or requested central government, union government to formulate laws on some subject. So under these three situations, union government enjoy right to frame laws even on the subjects mentioned in state list. Third list, that is concurrent list. It is concluded that some subjects are equally important for state level as well as important for national level. So, framer of constitution decided to put these subjects under concurrent list. And both government, union government as well as state government, enjoy rights and power to frame or formulate laws mentioned in concurrent list. That means both government are free to frame laws on the subjects mentioned in concurrent list, but one exception: if laws are first framed by union government, then this law will prevail in state government. But if state want to amend central law, in that condition, state government will have to seek permission from central government. Then only state government can amend the existing law or replace the existing law. When we enforce our constitution, number of subjects mentioned in this list was 47. But at present, number of subjects mentioned in this list is 52. Now take some examples. education, trade, trade unions, forest, marriage, adoption and succession are some examples. We know that education, the challenge before country after independence, because literacy rate of India is somewhere around 10%. And a huge mass living in our country was illiterate. Was it possible to literate such a huge mass by central government alone or state government alone? No. That's why this subject is put under concurrent list, and both government is given responsibility to spread education in our country. And that's why we are having CBSE board, which is controlled and governed by union government. We are having Bihar Education, Bihar Examination Board, controlled and governed by state government of Bihar. Means their means both government play their part in spreading education in state as well as at national level. So this was the condition. Now one question emerges in the mind of constitution framer, that what happens when any new subject came into the knowledge of government. For example, computer, space technology. World do not know about computer, cyber crime in 1950s, because world came to know about computer after 1967. So question, who frame, which level of government frame laws on the subjects, items which are not mentioned in any one of the three discussed lists, namely union list, state list, and concurrent list. So there was a provision of residuary subjects. The word residuary means left out. So any subjects, any items which is not mentioned in any one of the three discussed lists is automatically came under residuary subjects. And according to the Constitution of India, union government enjoy exclusive rights and powers to frame laws on the subjects mentioned in residuary subjects. And all new subjects came under the control and provision of union government. And we know that in holding together federation, union government intended to keep more power than state government. And here we can say that in Indian democracy also, union government keep more power than state government. Anyhow, power sharing is constitutionally approved. So we can say India is a federal country. Now, second feature of constitution which make India a federal country is the provision of amendment discussed in Article 368 of the Constitution. We know that Parliament has power to amend Constitution, and three different types of amendment procedure is well defined and explained in the Constitution. First one, by simple majority. Second one, by special majority. And third one, which is of our concern, that is special majority plus approval and consent of 50% plus one state. And this provision reads that basic features or fundamental provisions of the Indian Constitution cannot be amended unilaterally. That means to amend basic features or fundamental provisions of the Constitution of India, Union government needs support and approval of 50% plus one state. Then only basic features of Indian Constitution can be amended. Take example, GST Act. As GST Act bring change in taxation system of our country, which directly or indirectly affects the interest of the state government. And that's why to bring this change, Indian Parliament need support and approval and consent of 50% plus one state. And when 50% plus one state approve this, then only this bill is signed by President of India, and from bill it became act. So this example and this discussion helps us to conclude that India is a true federal country because union government alone can't bring change which affect the basic natures, which take away the power of the state government. For such change, union government will need approval and consent of state governments also. Third feature, which is mentioned in our constitution and which help us to conclude that India is a federal country, is existence of independent judiciary in our country. We know that in India, the highest level of court is Supreme Court. And next to Supreme Court are the high courts of different states. Now let us analyze whether judiciary in India is independent or not. Take example, how judges of high courts and Supreme Courts are appointed. We know that Judges of high courts and Supreme Courts are appointed by the President of India on the basis of the panel. But at the same time, can President of India remove judges of Supreme Court or High Court by his own consent, own decision, like governors of states? Answer is no. To remove judges of High Courts and Supreme Court, the process of impeachment is required. Second, salary and allowances of judges of High Courts and Supreme Courts are not changed even under financial constraint, because their salary and allowances are charged from consolidated funds of India. This helps us to conclude that India is a federal country. Next, financial autonomy. We know that both level of government enjoy power and right to raise revenue, and this power to raise revenue make state government financially autonomous, and financial autonomy enjoyed by state really makes state independent, makes state free from the control, dependency and control on union government. Means for planning and development, state government did not depend upon union government all the time. They can plan their own development by using their own money. Plus one more provision is defined and mentioned in our constitution. Central government will have to allocate funds to every state from central pool on the recommendation of National Development Council after consideration of the demands raised by state government. So central government will share its revenue with state government, and that really makes state government financially autonomous, and this make our country strong federal country. And last provision I like to mention here is that in India, 3 levels or tiers of government exist, namely union government, state government, and local self-government. Local self-government is made effective after 1992. With this point, I am concluding today's discussion on our topic. What makes India a federal state? Beside these, we can add some other important points also. But here I am discussing with you 5 important features of Indian Constitution which make India a true federal state.